So in today's video, I'm actually going to be cleaning out my DUBIA roach colony, and so I thought it would be a great time to talk about how I actually care for them, and to update you how the colony is doing since I set it up a year ago. I'm going to be talking about pretty much everything that I do to care for this colony, and hopefully you can take something from it. I do intend for this colony to form the bulk of the feeders that I'm going to use in the future. At the minute it's a bit small, but I will talk about different problems that I've had over the past year keeping this colony and how now I've rectified them, and so hopefully things are looking for the better. Anyway, you're watching JTB Reptiles and I'm going to get on with the video. So then guys, the plan for today is that I'm actually going to clean out my DUBIA colony, because it's been going for a long time. I've cleaned it several times, but it was a while ago I last cleaned it and we've ate a lot since then, so it is going to need a clean out. Now this tub here is the one that they're living in at the minute, and what we're going to be doing through the course of the video is moving all of the cockroaches out of this and putting them in here, and then I'll be resetting all of this up after I've cleaned it. So it'll make it nice and easy to see what's going on in there and what I'm talking about. So then, let's open up the tub and I'll talk about a few things before we get into cleaning them. Now, firstly, you'll see that I do have this blacked out with newspaper, and I do have some mesh in the top of the lid. This is because DUBIA cockroaches especially really like things to be dark. They won't breed and they just won't be as active if you haven't darkened things out. So I've got newspaper all around the lid, and I do have it round the sides of the box. If I just lift it up, you can see there. So that keeps it nice and dark for them. And then this bit of mesh, which is just siliconed on with aquarium silicone, just allows some free airflow because you don't want things getting stagnant. Lastly, you'll see over here that I do have a little cable coming in, and that is for the thermostat probe, and I will talk about the thermostat more in a bit. So then, opening up our box here, you'll probably see, yep, there's a few nymphs and an adult female there. Yeah, I can see quite a few nymphs running about. Just lay that lid down. But you'll see that things are pretty dirty in there now. I've got various, oh, there's one living in that, various orange peelings where the insides have all been eaten. That was the water dish. It's now got some dry leaves in it and no gel. There is frass, or I think you can call it frass, but it's generally the technical term for insect droppings. That's all over the place. This dish did have cereals in it. Completely gone, so this is a real tip, to be honest, now, and it does need a clean out. So what we'll be doing, like I said, is I'll transfer all of the cardboard into there with all the roaches, clean this out, and then put everything back. Okay, so we're now at the point where I've got all of the roaches in this tub here. It's a bit of a too small tub, to be honest. This comes right above the edge of the tub, which brings me to the point that male DUBIA cockroaches do have wings. They can't fly and they don't seem to like to jump upwards, but with a position like this, they could very easily jump and get out the box. So I'm not taking my eye off this at all because I don't want them getting out. But then over here, I've just got all the waste left in. There's one dead cockroach and one male that looks like it's either a shed skin or it's a dead male, because the males do fight a bit. But out of probably 100 plus roaches, having two dead ones not so bad. Anyway, that is it with this box now. So what I'm going to do is I'll put all of this frass and stuff into another container. So if there's any nymphs left behind in it, then they can crawl out onto the bit of kitchen towel. So I'll go and set that up now. And then when I come back, I'll show you the empty container and talk a little bit about it. Now, as I said before, I do have a thermostat probe going in, and that goes right on the bottom, which is above a heat mat. I also have a heat mat here that's linked up to the same thermostat. They're the same wattage, so this one here is set to maintain this heat mat at 35 degrees, and as they're the same wattage, it should be like the same temperature. Now, this is absolutely vital to getting them to breed, because DUBIA roaches just are not going to breed unless it's hot enough. So really having that nice hotspot about 35 degrees seems to do really well. I've had this colony set up a year, and originally I had it set up at like 28 degrees-ish, and they weren't breeding very well. Upped it to 35 and they're doing great now. Another note on the heat mats is that the one on the side's fine, but the one underneath, this box doesn't really have anything in the way of legs at the corners or anything, so it doesn't create nice airflow around that heat mat, which you do not want because it is a fire hazard. So I've like built this little sort of wooden thing you can see, where it'll raise it up so that there's a nice airspace. Apologies if you can't see that very well, but as you can see, when I sit that down, the heat mat's got a nice airspace underneath it, so it's not going to overheat and cause a fire. Quite a serious note here is that I would definitely make sure that you do get a thermostat rather than just plugging your heat mat into the wall, because even if you do have a nice airspace around it like I've got, there is still a risk of it overheating. So getting a thermostat where it's going to control your heating element to the proper required temperature is just so much safer, and given that a mat stat is only like 20 quid, I don't really see why you wouldn't do it. So just as a bit of advice, get yourself a thermostat. Now that the box is cleaned, it's time to put the roaches back. So already something to keep in mind when I'm doing this is how I'm actually positioning the cardboard. Now what I try to do is fit as much cardboard as is possible into this box, because you want to create the surface area for the roaches to breed on, because if you didn't have it in there, they'd just all be on the bottom and you would not sustain as large a colony. So this is absolutely important. Now, in order to fit as much cardboard in there as possible, you need to pack it quite tight. I've messed about with the arrangement in this, and what I sort of do is I have that bit on the bottom, then I have a bit up the side on the other heat mat of these big pieces that were like packaging for paint tins, and then I have some other bits round and about so that they can cool off. Now over here you'll also see when I put this one in that it's absolutely covered in frass, and what I'm making sure to do is tip it out into this box and not bring any of it back into here, because we've just cleaned that and that would sort of defeat the object. To be honest, I've actually noticed that like the orange peels have gone pretty much rock hard. And as you can see, the roach is kind of like hiding in them. So that sets a surface area, and I actually think I'm going to keep them in. So then, that's all the nasty cleaning jobs out the way. And it is time to give up these fellas some food. Now, what I've got to feed them today is lots of vegetable matter, and I do have some cereals, but because I seem to have cut far too much in the way of veg, they're not going to be getting the cereals today. One thing to note when feeding these fellas is that apparently they can lift the bowl. Hello. Thank you. Yeah, so what I was saying before that cockroach rudely interrupted was that you don't want to feed these guys anything that's really high in protein, because they will store that and it can kill them. And also, if you give a really high protein meal to, say, a bearded dragon, then that can be a cause of gout, and so you want to make sure you steer clear of that. So, feeding them here, what veg I've got some cabbage, which they'll have quite a lot of because I don't give them that very often. Just chuck that in there. Then we've got quite a bit of lamb's lettuce. This is a bit moist, so I'm going to just chuck it in there, so it won't cause any damage or whatever to the cardboard. Bit more cabbage, piece of pepper, they'll like that, that's a bit moist, can go in there. I do have some little chunks of apple as well, which you don't get too often, so that's a bit of a treat. Yeah, and then more of the same. But basically the main point is that I'm not giving them fish food or dog food or anything like that, because I don't want to risk overdoing the protein. Of course, they're going to need a source of water, and what I've got are some like rehydrated crystal things. You can get them in garden centres and stuff. Do not buy the ones that like are sold by ProRep or whatever, because you get like for £2.50. You could either buy the dry crystals and add your own water, and that will give you litres upon litres of the crystals, or you could buy them rehydrated and just waste your money on water. So I get them dry, and then I've just got like a fish food pellet, whatever, tub that I just fill them up in. It's pretty empty now, so I'll have to get some more. But anyway, I'll just pour some of these in here. Now I do like fill this dish up quite a lot because they go through these quite quick. And that's pretty much about as many as I've got left of this. So I will have to get some more of those crystals and rehydrate them. But whatever the case, it seems to do them well. The reason behind buying these crystals instead of just putting water in there is that they will drown in the water. You could use a sponge, but there's sort of the risk of them eating the plastic and then that going into your reptile or amphibian, which is something that I would personally prefer to avoid. And so this is the best method as far as I can tell. So then, that is pretty much the setup for the DUBIA roaches and how you care for them. I'll just run through it again just to reiterate any points I've made. So firstly, you want to have a tub that's a reasonable size and has lots of cardboard in it, packed in nice and tight, but with room for the roaches to move in and out, of course, so that they do have some nice surface area to run on, and that'll allow you to support a much larger colony in the same size box. Next up, you want to make sure that your box is heated. I've got a heat mat on that side and also on the bottom, so that they can choose where they want to go in terms of temperature and stuff. And also you want to make sure that it's about 35 degrees for them to breed. Any hotter you risk cooking them, and any cooler they're just not going to be bothered. Last but not least, in terms of the diet, you want to stick with stuff that's low in protein because you don't want to risk giving them too much, which will kill the cockroaches, or if it doesn't kill them, it could possibly cause gout and similar diseases in your reptiles. And for water, give them the rehydrated crystals, buying the dry crystals because that's a lot cheaper, because if you give them like a set water source, then they're just going to drown in it. In terms of a timescale, I've actually had this colony going for a year now, and I've only fed one cockroach out of it. So it does take a very, very long time to get established, especially if you did what I did, which was starting off with too few cockroaches. I only bought like 4 of the tubs or something that you can get with, and they've got like 5 to 7 cockroaches in each, and I put them in here. So it took ages to get them breeding, but over time I've got more and more tubs. There's probably about 10 tubs worth in there now. But I am getting more and more nymphs, and you do see some like pretty big nymphs in there now. So it is starting to take off, and I do intend for this to be my main feeder source once they're really going. So anyway guys, that brings us to the end of the video. Now, I do really hope that you've enjoyed this and could find some good information from it, even if you already know how to keep dubias and you've got a successful colony, because I have learnt a lot about keeping them over the past year, and hopefully within the next year I should be feeding off this colony, because Charmy Bearded Dragon loves dubias, my crested gecko will take them, my leopard gecko will take them, I'm sure the line day geckos would take the little nymphs too, so they're an ideal feeder for me, and not only that, they're really healthy. So fingers crossed we can get this colony really booming, and hopefully it should form the bulk of the feeders that I use up. So like I say, I hope that you found this video informative and that you did enjoy it. If you'd like to see more similar content in the near future, then do consider subscribing because I am uploading every week at the minute. But from me, that is it for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys. Was